Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm going to scanner my intro.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Scanners, which came out in 1981, written and directed by David Cronenberg. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Cameron Vale, played by Stephen Lack. He's been captured by Patrick McGoohan, playing Dr. Paul Ruth. McGoohan is looking to start up a small army of scanners to help him defeat another army of scanners run by Michael Ironside. When the two forces clash, things just might pop.
So I think it goes without saying that Scanners is a horror cult classic movie.
Yep.
But the production for this film was a bit of a mess. Cronenberg himself has said of all the movies he's ever worked on, this one was the most frustrating, the
Really?
most stressful, because when they went into production, there was not a finished script. So, as they were shooting, as Cronenberg was directing, he was also still writing the next pages to film the following day.
Oh man.
So the actors didn't really get a full sense of their characters. They didn't really know what the development of the story was going to be. They were just almost improvising scenes as they were going.
Nice.
And of course, it turned out to be a very frustrating experience for Cronenberg. Now, he had got his start back in 75 with Shivers.
Yeah.
And that really put him on the map as a interesting horror director with a bit of a penchant for maybe a bit of sexuality thrown into the body horror mix.
Yeah.
And of course he would continue exploring those themes with Rabid in 1977.
Yeah.
Then The Brood in 1979. And then this one, which really doesn't have the sexual overtones as those other movies.
Yeah.
But this one, Scanners, was probably his most successful film up until the point before he would go on to make The Fly, which is, in my opinion, probably his greatest accomplishment in film. And it just happens to be a remake as well.
Yeah.
But for me, Scanners, though, was always the film in his library that I would often skip.
Yeah, I'll admit, I mean, Scanners, I love Cronenberg now that I'm older, but when I was younger, the name David Cronenberg, was scattered here and there because, he was bringing out films like Existenz, which I thought was really good, but was getting panned. I didn't really get Videodrome when I was younger. It wasn't until I watched it older. Rabid I really like, but I think I watched Rabid and Dawn of the Dead at the same time, so I got this whole zombie aspect with Rabid. And Shivers, yeah, you never really want to watch Shivers late at night. Scanners, I watched the first time and I was just like, yeah, nah, that's boring. People talk about the head popping sequence, it's fun, yeah, get over it. There's nothing else really going on. And I just moved away from it. The Fly, like Gary said, that's the best one in his whole repertoire. Going back and watching this for the review, though, has completely changed my opinion.
Okay.
I think it was really good for its time, and knowing that obviously Cronenberg was only writing it on the fly, The Fly, he must have struggled trying to make this film work. But at the end, it's just an action horror movie about psychics. That's your basic element. But at the same time, Patrick McGoohan playing Dr. Paul Ruth is just phenomenal because he really sells the story that this is what's going on, which brings you into the Cronenberg universe of these scanner people.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the scientific explanation as to what these scanners are,
Yeah.
our intro to the film follows I perceived as a homeless person wandering around this shopping mall, which looked very familiar.
Yeah.
And we can hear the inner monologues or chatter of all of the people around him. And there's I guess a very well-off couple of ladies chatting there.
Yes.
And one of them notices his state. And her internal, thoughts are saying how disgusted she really is with somebody like that being in her proximity. And of course this upsets him and he starts scanning, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things like in like telepathic battles between characters. Like, how do you illustrate it on film? And with scanners, they decided to have that high frequency
Oh
sound that
man.
would just rise up, like the tensions rising up. And it is a little bit annoying, but it gets the message across, especially when you see. I mean, if you were to like take the track away and just watch the people in this film just reacting to being scanned, it's kind of B movie hilarious.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching this film. Because Cronenberg just goes, I need sound, and I'm going to crank it up to 11. Like, even the opening credits had this massive, huge orchestra where I'm like, where have I heard that before? And it's the start of The Fly.
Right, yeah.
You know, where he did the exact same thing. And
Makes it feel serious and
yeah,
important and real and
like, you need to watch this movie. And then you get to this moment where, like, Stephen Lack, who I really thought was Flyboy from Dawn of the Dead. I couldn't stop thinking that throughout this whole movie. He uses his ability and then he's chased around by these agents, captured, and then he's just kind of whisked away to the doctor.
yeah, where the doctor then explains to him that he is a scanner.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so now we've had an example of what a scanner is, now we're getting the explanation for what a scanner is. And I find it interesting that Cronenberg, the original scene for the beginning of the film was pushed back.
Yeah.
And he put these scenes at the front because he was like, people are going to arrive late to the cinema. So I want to save what they're paying for so they don't miss it in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we cut to like a lecture hall, and they're going to give an example of what scanning can do.
Yeah.
And we see this scanner, and he calls for a volunteer, and we see Michael Ironside volunteer.
Yes.
Now, Michael Ironside was cast for a bit part in the film. But I'm only assuming, like, Michael Ironside did so well, they went, we're going to extend your character role, because they were writing it as they went. They were like,
Yeah.
you're really good, so you've been paid almost an extra salary, but you're going to be the big villain of the movie now, because you're Michael fucking Ironside.
Yeah. Daryl Revick. I mean, he goes and sits down and just like you said, if you remove the audio to this sequence, it's just Michael Ironside emoting as best as he can that he's the guy with the glasses is actually a scanner that they've made, and he's going to use his ability to go into somebody else's mind and take out information. But Daryl Revick is another scanner that they don't know, and he's going to use his ability to scan back. And you just have that just most amazing head explosion after the guy is just... I was watching the sequence and I'm thinking, he's trying to tell people that what's going on is that he's getting scanned, and he can't because Revick is stopping him, and then... Oh, yeah.
It's glorious. I mean, this video's now been immediately demonetized. YouTube's like struck an age certificate on the video. This 80s gore effect is still marvelous today. It's absolutely fantastic. Now you can see the quick cut.
Yes.
From the real actor to the prosthetic dummy face. It's so quick though, and of course the head explodes so quick, and there's such a fountain of blood. The edit doesn't, it's immaterial anymore, And the way they achieved it was, the head was filled with like leftover food from the canteen.
Nice.
It was filled with dog food and I think like rabbit livers, and then they fired a 12 gauge shotgun at the back of its head, so it literally explodes the way it does, and it's absolutely fantastic, and it's the reason to watch this film. I mean, you can turn it off now.
Yeah.
Like you can turn it off now.
Well, actually, no. There are just some more amazing moments coming up. But I mean, like with a lot of Cronenberg's movies, it's always the talking moments that keep you enraptured in the story. That's kind of what kept me enraptured with Rabid, was understanding that this woman was turning rabid and she didn't know. In this, it's finding out who Vale is, and through Dr. Paul Ruth talking to him, helping him unlock his abilities so that they can send Vale out to try to stop Revick.
That's right.
Because there's an underground... Like, you have that amazing sequence between all the people working at ComSec. And you've got the new head of security, Braden Keller, telling people that they need to stop the scanner project. And Patrick McGoohan is just like, explain to him, like, why would we take away our only weapon against these weapons that we have actually created?
Well, he theorizes that they're only a starting scanner company, and he realizes if there was an assassin come in to sabotage them, then there must be another company out there much more advanced than where they are now.
Yeah.
And so finding Revok and finding out who this other company is and putting a stop to it is what he's now tasking Cameron to go and do. And I'm like, but Cameron's like a bum that you just brought in off the street, gone, yeah, you're a scanner, now go find this scanner.
But is he?
Well, I mean, this is a thriller / mystery. Now, and that is, unfortunately, though, where you mentioned earlier about how the talky parts of a Cronenberg movie are pretty important for establishing stuff.
Yeah.
Now, this one here is, like, I would say maybe more scientifically leaning than maybe his other films, because we have more scientists discovering what's going on.
Yeah.
Or explaining what scanners is. But I honestly found Stephen Lack and Patrick McGoohan and their scenes so still, so dry.
Stephen Lack is,
in my opinion, one of the worst actors in a leading role I've seen in a long, long time. Like, that is what I think is probably the reason why I never go back to Scanners.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's Stephen Lack.
Yes.
He is a terrible protagonist. I don't care one iota for this character. He does nothing in the entire film that makes me care for a second about him, other than that he's a fellow human being. But there's nothing about his character that make me go, oh, that's why I like Cameron Vale. He's a good guy. There's nothing.
Well,
I'll just finish. And I also find that, you know, granted, he is not an actor. He retired from acting soon after, and he is now a very, very successful and very prolific artist. So I'm like, acting was not his calling. Art was. And so that is great that he did find it, but it does mean that we still have to live with his performance in this film. And even though Patrick McGoohan, I think, is a fantastic actor, he does his doctor job well. It's just that he's also acting against somebody who's not emoting, not responding, and it's just very flat. And for me, that just, it drains any pace or energy or urgency for this character to actually motivate himself. Like, why does he really need to go and get Revok? Because he was told to?
Yes. Basically, because Cronenberg is writing it on the fly. See what I did there? But I kind of understand it now, I suppose, and that's what makes me appreciate this. Because Vale, Stephen Lack, he's so just not doing anything, and the most he does is he uses his scanner ability to take other people out. He's a powerful scanner. We start to notice that throughout the movie. And so he goes and finds out information to speak to some guy called Pierce, who's going to lead him to another person who's going to lead him to Revok. And so when he goes and speaks to Pierce, this whole conversation is lacking. You know, just any reason of why, you know, Vale has just taken all this on board, that he's going to go and do this. Then the 5 people turn up with shotguns.
I'm one of you. One of me. Yes.
And Pierce is absolutely blown away. And the funny thing is that we talk about Cronenberg and his body horror and how shocking his movies are, but with a movie like Scanners, with how bad the performances are when the talking parts, and then the over the topness, like I said, for me the sound was just so loud in some sequences. Watching Pierce die, and then watching Stephen Lack, Cameron Vale, do his scanning ability and taking the people out.
It was like he was doing like 80s pop music poses with his hair flying around. Like, and it's just, it was so bad.
It was just, but you're
I
just
get
getting
it.
hammered. Yeah, you're getting hammered. This is Scanners, people. Didn't you get this when the music hit you at the beginning of the movie?
And of course, watching people have these brain aneurysms before they're sent flying across the room, bouncing off walls and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I did like the set though. I like the giant hedge that he gets into. I was like, oh, it's very symbolic for the scanners and everything.
Yeah, and Pierce was an artist, which
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
Stephen Lang would become. We also start to reveal information that Keller, the head of security, is actually leaking information. And spoilers, he's actually leaking the information to Revok. And Revok knows that Vale is looking for him, but he wants Vale to find him. So when Vale goes and sees another scanner woman called Kim Obrist, and she's very attractive, but with going up against Stephen Lack.
Well, I just want to say that Jennifer O'Neill is top billed for this film. This is 47 minutes into the film before she arrives on screen. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but they had to build it up.
True.
There's going to be this whole love relationship thing now. This sequence was well over the top. Like, you'll remember a lot of sequences in this movie. Some of them are amazing. But this moment where you've got 5 or 6 of these people all sat in a room scanning together.
They're having a group scan.
Yeah. You know, they're working out about how powerful they can be if they scan together instead of scanning individual. The people with the shotguns, were they scanners or were they just part
I think
of
they
an army?
I think it's hard. I don't think they were scanners then, yeah.
Because, like, if you're scanners, why would you use a shotgun?
Right, yeah.
You know, but then you get the 2 assassins. Like, I got a bit confused what Revok was doing. Was he taking over the mind of somebody, or did he become this person and then they walked into the building, took out their shotguns from their cases, they walk into the room and they start blasting?
Well, we figure out, like, the scanners, they all seem to have different powers or abilities to some extent. Like, some people can take information from your mind.
Yeah.
Some of them can see the future. Some of them can make you do things you don't want to do. And so there's a few throwaway lines of dialogue that explains that some scanners are more powerful than others and some can do different things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's a scene later on where, like, a cop or a security guard has got a gun on him, or on her, and she turns into that security cop's mother. And he's like,
yeah.
oh, mother, I'm sorry, why?
Yeah.
You know, so it's so weird, like, we don't really know what all the powers are or what their limit it really is.
Well, I always put it down to, like after watching all the other psychic stuff you can watch other than scanners, you know, like, for me, Cameron Vale can do all of that. You know, with his mind, he can make people see stuff. He can set them on fire. He can make them explode. Revok is obviously the dark side of the scanning ability.
Well, we get to see some more of their powers a little bit later on, but after most of them get killed in their group scanning session, they escape into a bus.
Yes.
And they obviously big chase through the streets, but they're being shot at.
This was really good from Cronenberg. I didn't really see chase sequences.
I thought the chase scene was really good. I thought they captured it well. It was like, especially the shaky cam inside the bus.
Yeah.
Each of the characters panicking, shouting, wondering what's going on, still getting shot at.
Getting some emotion from Stephen Lack.
Just enough in this chase, and then it all ends when they crash into this record store. The bus upturned, and nearly all of them are dead except for Kim and Cameron, who run off. And we get the sequence, like, back now in the science HQ where Braden Keller is trying to shut them down.
Yeah, the computer sequence.
And it's the computer. I mean, again, it's another kind of dull sequence where we've got all these scientists in this really sterile, you know, really ugly looking room, just giving very factual information, and until shit blows up. But there's a few setups to it, but it's just this comedy line that he says. He's like, see? No fireworks!
See? I told you. No fireworks.
Oh, that was great. You know?
I was like, that woke me up.
Like, we'd had some good sequences up to that. They'd gotten the information about Revok's manufacturing plan, which had then linked that and Revok. Like, I didn't understand how Cameron had just turned up at the plant. He just walked in there. He must have used his scanning ability with all these scanner people around.
Yeah.
You know, Revok's
he's
like,
wearing a
right
disguise.
there. Oh, yeah, he's wearing a disguise. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, he's fine. He's wearing a disguise. And then he gives the information to Dr. Ruth, who then calls him and Kim in.
He starts asking about whether he can scan a computer.
Yes, yeah, because they've realised that Keller must be in on it now because he's got the information about the drug that they're using. Like, there's emphasis on the drug that Vale uses to kind of quell this
The
scanning
voices,
ability.
yeah.
Where Revik, you see videos of Michael Ironside doing like doctor reports where he's drilled a hole into his head and it's his third eye.
Right.
And I was just like, that's really good. I kind of like that. Everything from Stephen Lack is kind of
Yeah, see, that's
boring.
it's an underlying theme in the film that I wish maybe had been explored more. Maybe have helped care more for the
Yeah.
scanners, because, like you said, he's taking this drug to put the voices away so that he can sleep and rest because he can't turn off his scanning. It's always on. It's always active.
Yeah.
And so I was like that. Like that's a problem that the character's trying to live with and deal with, but it's mentioned once or twice and
That's
dropped.
it. It's just dropped because then their secret base gets attacked, and Vale and the girl escape, and Keller ends up killing Patrick McGoohan's character, and that kind of made me feel sad because he had generally emoted to Stephen Lack's character that he cared for him, and I didn't understand why until later on it's revealed. But when they hooked into the computer, Vale's got all this information. He's like, we're going to hook into the computer from this phone box. I'm like, all right, where's this going to go? Okay, what are they going to do? And he starts working through the computers, and Keller's just like, shut it down. Look, no fireworks, and fucking everything explodes. And not just everything in the room. I mean, Keller is killed.
Yeah.
The two technicians, well, one of them survives. He's looking around like, what the...
But then the phone that he's holding starts
Melting?
melting. But there's also they're in a gas station as well, and this guy lets the gas go.
And the electrical line that they've been using sets on fire and drops down and just blows the gas station. I'm like, whoa, Cronenberg, like.
Now, I mean, there are some over-the-top explosions, but I just did remember there's a chase near the beginning of the film,
Yeah.
where a car like careens and crashes into a wall and explodes like a second later. And I was like, yeah,
When
the 80s cars, so deadly.
When Revik escaped, yeah, that was just good. They were just like, yeah, we've got our guns trained on him, we're fine. I'm like, he's the most powerful scanner in the fucking place.
Right.
You know, when you finally get Revik and Vale together, you know, they've captured Kim as well, and Revik basically explains, like, look, you've realized that you have no history, you have no childhood, you basically just woke up a few weeks ago.
Literally just walked off on the street.
Walked off of the street. And that's because you're my brother, and our dad, Patrick McGoohan, Dr. Ruth, used us as guinea pigs when we were in our mother's womb, basically injected us with the very drug that suppresses your psychic ability. So Revik has been using that now to try and put it out in the general populace, because you have that moment between Kim and the baby.
Yes,
in the waiting
and she
room.
gets scanned by the unborn baby.
Yeah.
Which is what that leads Cameron to interrogate the doctor, which leads him to where he needs to go about the drug to find out this whole conspiracy that's going on about making an entire army of scanners, or just turning the population into scanners.
Which at this point I thought was pretty cool. Maybe it's, like I said, my age, but I was just like, I don't care about the body horror stuff anymore. I want to know about the story. And the lacking emoting ability from Stephen Lack through Vale is, I'm finally getting the cool shit from Michael Ironside, but he's the bad guy. But I don't
Right.
care, because it's Michael Ironside, and he's basically saying, like, yeah, our dad was in on it. You killed Keller. You and I can get together and we can rule the world. And Vale's like, no, I'm not like you. You know, and he's just like, well, I don't care, because I'm going to scan you anyway and take your mind. I'm going to bring you into me, you know, and they start having their scan off.
Yeah, and at least this scanner battle, I guess, has, some okay prosthetics, like watching the veins moving up and bubbling on their faces. I'm like, you can see, like, now you watch it in HD as well, you can see the prosthetic. It looks like it's been glued on. It's not seamless, but at least the blood red, when it starts pissing out everywhere, is quite effective, as it's drowning them in their blood.
Yes.
But yeah, like, their expressions are, that go from intense to in agony, but we do get that iconic Scanners poster shot, Michael Ironside, his eyes going white, kind of standing like he's being shocked. It's pretty cool, But I do find this entire scene very anticlimactic, really. I mean, from the
yeah,
setting
weirdly enough.
to to this final conversation to this battle. And obviously, we're not really sure who's winning. And then when Cameron sets himself on fire and he's standing there like some kind of religious icon,
Yeah.
and then the next time we see him, he is just ash. There's a skeletal ash on the ground.
Yeah.
And then the big twist.
Yeah, Kim comes running into the room and she's just looking for Cameron, and Revok turns. He's got Cameron's eyes and he says, "Hey, we've won," in Cameron's voice. And that's the end of the movie. And Cronenberg hits you with that fucking outgoing music.
Yeah. I mean, it's... Yeah, like I said, maybe if I cared one way or the other, like at this battle, I'm like, I don't care which one of you actually wins.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. I don't.
That's it.
I wish I cared more.
I kind of felt the same, because like the film is massively remembered for these massively huge iconic sequences, and they last for a few seconds. Nobody talks about the computer sequence of just exploding. Hey, remember Scanners, when the guy goes, "Hey, no fireworks," and the whole fucking room explodes? No, nobody talks about that. They talk about the head exploding.
The
sequence.
first 5 minutes, yeah.
You know, and that's okay, but why aren't we talking about the main character of Scanners? Because he's not very
There's
good.
nothing to talk about.
You know, why aren't we talking about the shoots out with the shotguns? Because there's not really much to go with. The reveal of, you know, the Doctor, I kind of knew, because as soon as the movie started and Patrick McGoohan turned up, I'm like, he's the Doctor. He must be evil, because it's a Cronenberg movie. Every Cronenberg movie has an evil doctor or scientist or somebody who does something that they shouldn't be doing, and it fucks up shit for everybody else.
Yeah.
This is your guy.
Well,
you know?
speaking of fucking shit up for everybody else, this wasn't the end of the Scanners storyline.
No,
Scanners
no.
continued some years later with Scanners 2, The New Order in 1991, which is 10 years later.
Yeah.
Then we had Scanners 3, The Takeover in 1992, and I believe Scanners 2 and 3 were shot back to back and then released separately.
No.
And then, a few years later, we got a spin-off series of movies called Scanner Cop in 1994, before the final Scanners film, Scanners The Showdown, in 1995. Now, there was almost a remake of Scanners by the director of Saw 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
But he asked Cronenberg for his blessing on remaking it, and Cronenberg said no.
Yeah.
No Scanners remake.
That's it. I was thinking that. I was thinking this movie totally deserves a remake. It needs to be brought up to modern generations. You know, I wouldn't even mind if you had like a bunch of teen kids walking around high school and they're all scanners and they make people's heads explode. The heads, if we're talking Scanners, we're talking heads exploding. That's your main thing, right? If we're not, we're talking about a secret government project where they're making babies have scanner abilities. Which one do you want, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think Scanners could even work as a TV series, as a show. You know, police procedural kind of thing. It's the thriller, the mystery.
As long as we got the head popping.
As long as we got a head popping in every episode, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, what were your favourite scenes in Scanners?
The head popping, obviously. It's such a great special effect, and I wish they had just done more. I like the final battle sequence prosthetics with Michael Ironside and Vale, but it's just not enough. It's just, especially when Ironside gets the bigger camera shot, you know, with obviously the eyes and turning the setting on fire. The whole religious aspect is completely lost on me. The computer room and just the subsequent gas station explosion was absolutely amazing. Why aren't we talking about that more? You know, the guy goes flying out through the door. It's fucking amazing. The shotgun sequences are okay, but a lot of my favourite sequences as well are Patrick McGoohan, Dr. Ruth, kind of just doing his sciencey stuff. He's like, if you ever watch The Prisoner, you know, it's an old British TV series, but you had to be sold on the character's performance. And so this guy makes his money through that. Like Gary says, he's going up against Vale, and it just doesn't come through from Vale. So if you can sit through that, you know.
Yeah. Of course, the head explosion. That's the only thing I ever usually remember when it's been a long time since I've seen this film. That glorious, glorious head explosion. I did like the bus escape, the chase, and then the crash into the record store was pretty good. I liked the art room and the giant head that they step inside to have their conversation.
Yeah.
I thought that was that worked really really well. Of course, no fireworks. Boom. That was great. I liked the conversation with Michael Ironside at, like, I don't know if they're at a subway or
Yeah.
a train station, and he just turns to him and says, "Kill him, really." The only way Michael Ironside can deliver that kind of line
Michael Ironside.
is just perfect.
I thought you didn't want
Kill
Ruth
him.
to me.
Really?
Well, Ian, do you recommend Scanners?
Yeah, I want to, but only if you're a real Cronenberg fan. I wouldn't just say it's for everybody, because yeah, Vale's actor is just not enough to keep me invested in him. I really love Michael Ironside, so if I'd ever come back to it, it's Michael Ironside. Just his explanation. Patrick McGoohan, yes. You know, watch it. If you want to watch special effects, you could see them on YouTube nowadays. But if you actually want to watch them like we used to back in the olden days, you know, watch the whole entire film. Stop there. And then move on to another Cronenberg.
Sure. Yeah, I can only really somewhat recommend Scanners, as it is a fairly well-made horror thriller with some great effects that have been remembered to this day. But for me, this film is a slog to get through. So many dull scenes, either in cinematography or character. I found it fairly hard to root for anybody, the exception being Michael Ironside, who commanded your attention, gave a great and memorable performance, and he's immortalized in a very iconic film poster for it. Stephen Lack, the lead, was very wooden, really bland, and I guess with a lack of script and time to develop a character being to blame here. Still, it makes the slow-paced scenes feel like they are dragging on. The story also feels anticlimactic, and it's not very satisfying to warrant many rewatches. The head explosions, gunshots, and crashes are well done, really gives the film its Cronenberg flair with incredible body horror. This is a classic, you know, it's one for all horror fans should at least check out once in their lives, but for me, it doesn't contend with other classics when looking back at it. It's good, but it's not great. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
See? I told you. No fireworks.